In the cold belly of Station D-47, orbiting the gas giant Kareth, silence reigned. Except for the screams. They came at irregular intervals, sharp, desperate, filled with a pain that seemed too human for the creature that made them. Workers tried not to notice. They turned up the hum of their mech tools, talked louder, pretended the sound was just the wind vibrating through vents. It was easier that way. The alien girl, no one even knew her name, was property of the consortium. A specimen captured from the outer reaches, somewhere beyond the Perseid Veil. To most aboard she was less a person, more an experiment, something bright and fragile behind reinforced glass. But Lieutenant Arlen Rowe noticed. He'd only been on D-47 for a month, a maintenance officer reassigned after a disciplinary mark in his file. Nothing serious. Just a refusal to follow a direct order that had cost him a promotion. His new post was supposed to be quiet, uneventful, a place to disappear. But the screams made that impossible. They cut through metal and memory alike. And every time they echoed down the corridor, he saw flashes of his own sister, the one he'd lost when Earth's coastal cities fell to the Blackwater floods. The sound was too much like her voice the night the evacuation ships left her behind. So one shift he stopped pretending. He followed the sound. The corridor led him deep into Lab Sector 9, a restricted area few bothered to enter. The doors were marked Biohazard. Containment Level 4. Inside, white light bled across polished steel. The air smelled of antiseptic and fear. And there, behind a curved barrier of transparent alloy, was the source of the screams. The alien girl sat curled in a glass cage, her knees drawn to her chest. Iridescent skin shimmered faintly blue, veins glowing like threads of bioluminescent ink. Her eyes, large, black, endless, flickered toward him as he entered. He froze. For a moment, the world shrank to just them. A human in uniform and a creature the universe had decided didn't deserve a voice. Her breathing hitched when she saw him. She pressed a trembling hand against the glass. He almost didn't move. Then he whispered, "It's okay. I'm not here to hurt you." The girl didn't understand the words, but something in his tone softened her trembling. Her hand stayed on the barrier. The faint hum of the energy field between them pulsed like a heartbeat. Later that night, Arlen searched the classified logs. It took hours. Hidden backdoors, forgotten passwords, but he found the file. Subject 47A. Xenoform captured from System Erythra 5. Designation: Specimen Luma. Purpose: Neural resonance testing. Status: Non-compliant. Experiments ongoing. His stomach twisted as he read the next entries. Electrostimulation. Cryoadaptation. Cognitive response to pain stimuli. They were torturing her. For science. For understanding. And nobody cared. The next week blurred into sleepless nights. Arlen began sneaking food packets into the lab. At first, the alien girl, Luma, he decided to call her that, not specimen, refused to eat. But slowly, she began to trust him. She'd tilt her head as he approached, her eyes bright with curiosity instead of fear. He spoke to her in whispers about Earth, about oceans and rain, about how he used to fix things for the military before everything went dark. She couldn't reply, not in words. But her gestures were eloquent. A flicker of light across her skin meant gratitude. Faint hum meant sadness. It became their secret language. Then one evening, she reached through the feeding hatch and brushed her fingers against his hand. For a fraction of a second, he felt a pulse, like a song pressed directly into his mind. Images flickered. Stars, water, faces made of light. And in that moment, he knew she wasn't an experiment. She was someone. When the scientists came the next day, things changed. Dr. Kale, head of research, was excited. "We've received orders from the High Directorate. Subject 47A is to be transferred to Central Command for deep extraction." Arlen frowned. Extraction? Of what? Kale smiled thinly. Neural energy. Her species' consciousness is distributed. Their minds are quantum-linked. Harvesting even one provides enough power to fuel hundreds of ships. He felt sick. "You're killing her." Kale shrugged. "She's not human. And we need results." The conversation ended there. But something in Arlen's chest snapped. He'd seen enough of humanity's cruelty to know when mercy was overdue. That night, alarms blared across the station. But not yet. For now he stood before her cage, heart hammering. "I'm getting you out," he whispered. "Do you understand?" Luma looked at him with wide eyes, uncertain. He keyed in the access override, the one he'd memorized after nights of watching Kale. The lights dimmed, systems flickered, and the containment field powered down with a sigh. The air felt suddenly alive. Luma stepped forward, cautious, then took a breath as if tasting freedom for the first time. When she smiled, it was fragile and radiant, like dawn breaking on a frozen world. Then the alarms began. Kale's voice erupted through the speakers. "Containment breach in Sector 9. Seal all exits." Arlen grabbed Luma's arm gently. "Run!" They sprinted through the corridors, sirens wailing. Red light bathed the walls. Drones swarmed from maintenance vents, their targeting sensors locking on. Arlen fired his sidearm, each shot sparking off metal and smoke. Luma, though weak, moved with eerie grace. When one drone cornered them, she raised her hand and a burst of blue-white energy rippled outward, shorting its circuits instantly. Arlen blinked. "Remind me never to make you angry." She gave a faint smile, then stumbled. He caught her before she fell. Her skin flickered erratically, light dimming. She was weakening. They reached the hangar. But between them and the escape shuttle stood Dr. Kale, flanked by armed security. "Lieutenant Rowe," Kale said coldly, "step away from the specimen." "She's not a specimen," Arlen snapped. "She's alive. She's dangerous. So are you." Kale raised his weapon. Luma's eyes widened, and suddenly, her hand flared with light again. A shield of energy surged up, deflecting the blast. Arlen pulled her behind a cargo crate, returning fire. He knew they couldn't hold out long. Then, amid the chaos, Luma reached for his temple, and he felt her again. Not just sound or image this time, but pure meaning. "Trust me." Before he could reply, she stepped into the open. Her whole body ignited with blue fire, her voice resonating in frequencies that made the air shimmer. The lights shattered. The gravity field warped. Kale's guards fell back, screaming as systems overloaded. Arlen shielded his eyes, and when the brightness faded, she was gone. Only silence remained. The official report said she'd disintegrated, that her unstable biology triggered a containment implosion. But Arlen didn't believe it. He was confined to quarters awaiting court-martial. No visitors, no comm access. The consortium didn't like heroes. They preferred obedience. Yet one night, as he lay in his bunk staring at the sterile ceiling, the air shimmered, faintly. And then he heard her. Not with his ears, but deep inside his mind. "Arlen!" He sat up, heart racing. "Luma!" The walls rippled with light. A faint silhouette appeared. Not fully there, but enough to see the outline of her face, her glowing eyes. "I am free," her voice whispered in his mind. "But they will come. they will take others. You must show them. Show them what? That we are not your enemy. Her hand, or what passed for it, brushed his cheek, a warmth that defied distance. Then the light faded, leaving only darkness and the echo of her voice. Thank you, Arlen Rowe. He never saw her again. But strange things began happening across the sector in the months that followed. Consortium ships found their systems disrupted, their weapons failing mysteriously. Colonies reported flickering blue lights in the sky. Peaceful, silent, untraceable. Some said they saw figures of light walking among the ruins of old battlefields. And one night, aboard a rusting freighter bound for the frontier, Arlen looked out the viewport and saw a faint glow among the stars, a shape that felt like a smile. He smiled back. Epilogue years later, Arlen's name became a rumor. The human who answered. A myth told in spaceports and resistance circles. Some said he died in prison. Others said he lived among the Erythrans, the light-born species once enslaved by the Consortium. No one really knew. But sometimes, when a ship drifted too close to the Perseid Veil, strange transmissions would echo across comms, pulses of light and sound that no algorithm could decode. And if you listened carefully, through the static and distortion, you could almost make out words. Human voice. A girl's laughter. And a promise. Years passed. The galaxy spun on, indifferent to the mercy of one human and one alien girl. The Consortium continued its conquest, rebranding its cruelty as progress. But whispers began to move through the void. Quiet, persistent, unstoppable. They spoke of sabotage on research stations, of data leaks exposing atrocities, of ships crippled not by war but by light. Flickering, blue-white light that shorted their systems and left only a single phrase scrawled into their data cores. Remember Luma. The directors denied it, of course. They called it superstition, a hacker's joke. But on the outer worlds, where miners and refugees huddled under false suns, the story meant something more. Meant hope. It meant that somewhere someone still fought back. And always at the center of that story was a man, a human soldier who had once listened when no one else did. Arlen Rowe lived quietly after his release, if you could call it living. The Consortium stripped him of rank and identity, scattering him to a nameless colony on the fringe. He worked as a mechanic, patching together shuttles that could barely hold pressure, fixing things that weren't worth saving. But every night he looked to the stars, waiting, listening. Sometimes he swore he could hear her again, faint harmonies beneath the static of the universe. He told no one. Some things were too sacred to explain. Then one night, as storms raged outside his prefab shelter, the power grid failed. The room went dark. For a heartbeat, he thought it was just another blackout. Until he saw the glow. It began as a shimmer in the corner, a pulse of soft, living blue. Then a figure emerged, no longer fragile or caged, but radiant, tall, unbound. Luma. Her eyes were the same, endless, gentle, alive. Arlen, she said, not with sound, but through the pulse of every light in the room. You kept your promise. He could barely breathe. I didn't do enough. You did more than any other human. You listened. That was enough. The world outside roared with thunder, but inside that small shelter, everything was still. She reached toward him, her light merging with his shadow. For a moment, he felt the warmth of her hand again. Real, steady, forgiving. What happens now? He whispered. There are others, she said. Still trapped, still screaming. But some humans have begun to hear. The cage is cracking. The darkness is thinning. And when it ends, they'll know you helped light the way. Her image began to fade, dissolving into thousands of glowing fragments, each one drifting upward, vanishing into the night sky through the thin seams of the roof. "Wait," he said softly. "Will I see you again?" Her voice lingered, warm and infinite. "Every time you look at the stars." The storm outside broke. The rain hissed softly on the metal roof, and the power flickered back to life. The room was empty again, except for a faint residue of light, a shimmering outline on the floor where she had stood. Arlen sat in silence, his eyes reflecting the last traces of blue. And then, for the first time in years, he smiled. Final epilogue. Months later, travelers along the Perseid Vale began reporting strange sightings, ghostly patterns of light forming words across the ion storms. One phrase repeated over and over in every translation: "No cage lasts forever." On the outer edges of known space, some claimed to see a small ship flying just ahead of the storms, one human pilot, guided by a luminous companion made of starlight. Others said it was just a legend, a story to comfort the guilty and the lost. But legends like light travel far. And so, across the cold and endless dark, the screams of the caged alien girl were no longer cries of pain. They were songs of freedom. Songs that one human had heard and answered. And because of that, the universe would never be the same again.